Good morning. Kalimera. If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Mark 8:34. This is what Jesus said to his disciples. What does it mean? It means that many times a day, probably, we come to a fork in the road where we have to make a decision. Do something that I want versus doing something that God wants. Brushing your teeth is not one of those forks in the road. You don't have to think when you brush your teeth. God wants us to take care of our bodies. He wants us to be stewards of our bodies. So we don't have to think, am I doing the right thing here? You are doing the right thing every time you brush your teeth, every time you take a shower. But there are times where we come to a fork in the road. Let's say that we're driving and somebody cuts us off. And we say, should I let some vulgar words come out of my mouth to express my disdain for what just happened? That's what I want to do. Is that what God wants me to do? No. God wants us to rise above that kind of thing. So we deny what we want to do, and we do what God wants us to do. Again, we're not at a fork in the road every minute of every day. We're not. But we're at that fork in the road lots of times every day. And to deny ourselves, take up the cross and follow, means every time we come to a fork in the road, do what God wants. Now, we're not going to do that all the time because we're sinful people. But I want you to think this week, when you arrive at one of those forks in the road, which you'll arrive at this afternoon for sure, before you go to bed tonight, you'll probably arrive at a few of them. At least think to yourself, am I at one of those forks in the road where I ought to be thinking? Or is this just like going through the sun pass, speed right through, don't give it any thought? Don't think when you're brushing your teeth. But think maybe when you're driving. Think maybe when you're annoyed with your kid or your spouse or a friend. Think about, am I at one of those forks in the road, and what does it mean to deny myself, take up the cross, and follow? The next verse of the Bible that is significant today is, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? I read the gospel in Greek today specifically because there's an egregious error in just about every English translation of the Bible. It says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? That's what it says in most translations of the gospel. But in the original Greek, which is why I read it today, it says, sihiaftu. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what can a man give in return for his soul? Many people are worried these days. We're anxious, even angry, that we're going to lose some things. People worry perpetually, am I going to lose my health? And if I get a positive test, am I going to lose a week of school? Am I going to lose a week of work? Someone who just started high school, who got COVID the first week and missed the first 2 weeks of high school, said, will I miss out on having friends to sit with at the lunch table? Some of us that are adults, we watch what's going on in the news and we worry, am I going to lose my wealth? Are we going to lose our freedom? We think about what we're losing, but do we ever think to ourselves, am I losing my soul? Am I losing my soul? Am I on the endless news cycle so much that my soul is being imperiled? Am I so concerned about myself and my things, whether it's my grades, my salary, or even my place at the lunch table? Am I worried so much about those things that I'm not thinking about my own soul? I don't want to lose my things. I'm one of those people. I worry about wealth and health. I do worry about that. I confess. We're on camera. I confess that. But as I read the gospel today, I have to think, I don't want to have those things at the expense of my soul. And I'm reminded about that every time I do a funeral, because we see a person laying out here and they don't have their bank book with them, they don't have their car with them, they don't have their resume with them, they don't have their awards with them, they don't have nothing with them. So if we're not focusing on our souls and what's good for them, we're eventually going to lose all that stuff anyway. Whether it happens because of a pandemic or a government edict or just we come to the end of our life, we're going to lose all that stuff anyway. So we got to have an idea about preserving what is in our souls. One of the hymns today that talks about the Holy Cross calls the cross a weapon of peace. A weapon of peace. People who carry weapons, soldiers, police officers, they carry weapons into battle because they're trying to battle against evil. We're told to carry the cross like a weapon, but a weapon for peace. A weapon for peace. Every time you see a peace officer walking around with a gun on their utility belt, you know they've got the means to put down trouble, because you can see it. They're wearing it. Do people see in us the means for peace? Do they see that? I don't walk around Tampa carrying the big blessing cross. Nobody does that. Some of us have a small cross we wear around our necks, and maybe it comes out of our shirt so people see, oh, they're a Christian. They're marked. But everybody carries an invisible cross that leads them. We're either using them as a weapon of peace, or we're putting it in our back pocket and not letting anybody see that. But when you were baptized, when you entered into the Christian faith, we made the mark of the cross on you, an indelible mark on everybody's head. As an aside, there has always been a sacrament of initiation to get into the church. In the Jewish faith, they required every male child to be circumcised, to have a mark on them that they were God's people. We don't do that for religious purposes anymore. But everybody who comes into the church has a mark made on them indelibly. It's the mark of Christ's cross on them when they're baptized. So whether you can see it or not, we're supposed to lead our lives leading forward with the cross as a weapon of peace, an invincible standard, we're told. So these are things for us to think about. We deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow when we come to one of those forks in the road? Are we so concerned about gaining the whole world that our souls are suffering? And do we carry the cross in front of us as a weapon of peace? In a moment, we're going to have a procession with the Holy Cross. We do this on the Sunday nearest the 14th of September, Holy Cross Day. And this day commemorates the day that St. Helen found the precious cross of Christ. She found it on the hill of Golgotha. She found it with basilica, basil growing there, which is why we have the cross with basil on a tray. And it passes over us to remind us that it's that weapon we're supposed to carry, that at our moments of uncertainty, it's the fork in the road we're supposed to take, and it's supposed to remind us that you can lose your entire life down to your very breath. And if you still have your soul, you have everything. So think about that as the tray goes over your heads. My soul is troubled, as is many of your souls. I know that. This last week, including yesterday, a scheduled day off, I had at least one traumatic phone call or conversation with somebody, either in this church or not in it. I mean, traumatized. Traumatized them, traumatized me. So I'm carrying that tray, and I'm praying to God, give me strength to carry my cross. Give you the strength to carry your cross. And the traumas that are coming in our life, give us strength to endure those, whether they're happening to us or whether we're hearing about them happening to other people. Deny ourselves, take up the cross and follow. Lead with the cross as a weapon of peace, and save your soul, because that's the only thing we truly can save. In the moment when the choir begins to sing, if we could all please kneel for this procession.